Hey, Ryder, what's up? How are you doing today?
Good, Harry. Glad to be on.
Awesome. So I think you actually may even be my first YouTube interview, so congrats on that.
That's great. Yeah, I know the podcast we did was maybe around a year ago, so it's good to talk again.
Yeah, I know you guys have a couple big announcements, but you're gonna have to do something really big to get back on the podcast, all
Okay,
right?
that's all right. Glad we could do the video. Yeah, there's been huge news on our end, so really glad to share it.
That's
And
awesome. Yeah.
this is the only video interview we've done as part of our big announcement.
All
So
right. Very
glad to do
cool.
it on the
Well,
right
yeah, I
channel.
appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to talk to me, and I won't take up too much of your time, maybe just 15 to 20 minutes. But yeah, you guys have some big announcements, which we'll definitely get to, and obviously, I'll let you talk a little bit about Sherpashare. But for those of my followers who don't know, it's a company I've actually, been promoting you guys a little bit here and there for, I guess, ever since I first started, because I think it was a very cool company. Just me coming from someone who's an engineer who's very analytical, and some of my top posts on my site are very in depth with links to complex spreadsheets and figuring out, all right, how much are we actually making? Because as you know, and as I know, Uber, mainly Uber and Lyft, these guys kind of like to give information, earnings information, without accounting for fees and expenses and all that good stuff. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Sherpashare and what you guys do and who you are for those who don't know?
Yeah, so my partner John Ming and I met early in 2014. We both knew the rideshare and delivery space quite well and saw the same problem was what you just mentioned.
Hmm.
Uh, Drivers did not have a good sense of how much they were making. They weren't working smarter.
Yeah.
And so what we built early last year was a dashboard for Uber, Lyft, sidecar drivers originally, although
Hmm.
we've expanded to delivery companies.
Very cool.
And those drivers can integrate all of their earnings and expenses and actually see what their take home pay is on these services and start to see trends on how to optimize their work.
Hmm. So that's cool. I mean, I think, yeah, so like what I said, one of the things that I liked about it was kind of seeing all of that income. And also, especially with drivers doing multiple services. And obviously, I'm a huge proponent of doing multiple services. I think delivery is going to be a huge thing going forward in 2015. And that's cool because I haven't explored too much with the delivery services on your site. So, what delivery services are you guys partnered with?
So we support Postmates and DoorDash
Nice.
currently, and we're looking to add a few others. And we, I think, to your point, we do see a lot of complementary uh, work that can be done on driving delivery. And
Hmm.
one of the trends we're seeing, and we've shared with a few people, is that rideshare drivers realize there's potential for delivery services kind of in off-peak times for driving. You can
Yeah.
switch to delivery. Yeah, so that's a good trend we're seeing among drivers.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I know we touched on our last podcast. We were talking about imagine when you could flip on Uber in the morning and then switch to Postmates at lunch and then back to Uber. And I guess what I've found, because I've been exploring Postmates quite a bit, and I haven't found too many times where peak Postmates correlates with low Uber, if that makes sense. So I found that most of the time you will make more with Uber. And so my question that I've been trying to figure out is why so many people are driving for Postmates when you can make more with Uber. And I feel like a service like yours would be able to pretty quickly show people, hey, if Uber is the best option or if Postmates is.
Right. And yeah, we do see that. I think it depends on what city you're in.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
Postmates has, I think, is growing quite rapidly. So some markets, I'm not sure what it's like in Southern California, but up here in San Francisco, the noontime rush
Yeah.
is great. I guess for other delivery services like DoorDash and Spoon Rocket, the peak between 11:30 and 2 p.m. is quite high. So I think
Hmm.
that's a reason why people switch to those
Interesting.
services.
That's cool. Yeah, and I mean, I know that when we talk about delivery, we're obviously focusing right now on food and groceries and restaurants, but there's really, I mean, you can probably know better, you might even know better than I do, living in San Francisco, the number of these services. I don't know if people realize just how many services are growing and are starting in San Francisco, but are moving to places like LA and slowly going to be branching out. I know that one that I've been looking into is Washio, and I know that there's more. So maybe you could touch on a few of those that you think might be kind of like using your crystal ball, tell us what's coming.
How it's going to shake out.
Yeah.
Well, we love seeing as many options. I mean,
Yeah,
especially
it's
up
great.
here, we see new companies coming up every day,
Mm,
um, and we love it. I mean, we're a big advocate of if you're a driver, you should maximize your options. You should onboard with as many companies as possible.
yeah.
What we envision is there'll be a world where um, the options that are out there you've onboarded, and then it becomes a question of which services to do on any given day.
Hmm.
So that's the ride share. There's more delivery options that are coming out this week. Sidecar announced a partnership with Meadow.
Yeah.
I think you touched on
Which
that,
is a
which
weed
is
delivery
weed
service, right? Ryder
delivery.
does it now.
And so there's these interesting hybrids
Yeah.
happening between like um, basically combining rideshare and delivery. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting model. It'd be interesting to see in a few weeks how that's been working.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think one of the challenges that drivers face is kind of figuring out, hey, especially what I learned with onboarding with Postmates is it's not every service is as easy to onboard, and even the easy ones like Uber and Lyft might require you to do a mentor ride or get your car inspected. And for someone who is very good at doing Uber and accustomed to doing Postmates, throwing in a new service, you're going through a lot of work when a lot of these services are logistically very similar, right? You might be transporting people, you might be transporting passengers. Postmates has blitz pricing, which is just like Uber's surge pricing. And so there are a lot of similarities, some differences, but I think the challenge for drivers is going to be, and workers is going to be navigating which of these services do they need to onboard with right now, and they don't want to have to try out 5 services to find the right one, if that makes sense. So
Right.
I think that's an interesting aspect of it.
Yeah, and we see kind of I mean, most people when they are new to the space, the biggest questions they have at the beginning is to your point exactly, which platforms to onboard for, and that's when they can look at Sherpashare and
Yeah,
kind of see, okay, well, here's how others are doing across different
yeah,
services. Um, Once you're working for a while, there's still value, especially if you're a savvy driver. You're always looking to optimize
definitely.
your work, and so a big point there is if you live, in the suburbs, uh, but there's more demand in the city, you start to make decisions. Okay, I need to change my location. One example is here in the Bay Area. The East Bay has a good amount of Lyft and Uber demand, but it's generally always busier in
Yeah,
the city. So the question a lot of drivers make is, do I go over the bridge to drive in downtown San Francisco, or do I stay in the East Bay?
yeah.
Uh, yeah,
And will I make more money? I guess. Yeah, because I mean, even for someone who meet with me who is a retired engineer.
you're officially retired. That's
Yeah,
great.
I'm retired, but I mean, so I'm pretty savvy when it comes to math and calculating this and that. Man, it's hard to figure out how much it costs to operate your car and to figure out all that stuff. So I think one of the reasons why I like Sherpashare and I think it's good for drivers is because your values are very closely aligned with mine and other companies and people that are basically doing things to support drivers. I mean, a healthy Uber and a healthy Lyft is good for both of us, but at the same time, a happy driver workforce and a driver workforce that's making more money is a lot more valuable. And so that's kind of one of the things I like is I always try to align myself with companies who, when drivers are benefiting the most, they prosper the most. So I think that's kind of an important distinction. So yeah, and so why don't so the reason I have you on here, let's touch on. You guys had a couple big announcements. You popped up in the New York Times, which was pretty cool. I think I even saw a nice little shot of you in the New York Times. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and a couple of the big announcements you guys made recently?
Yeah, that was great. For those of you who didn't see it, not just because we were in it, but I'd recommend it for other rideshare drivers. It was a great piece that looked at the on-demand world broadly speaking, although happened to feature Sherpashare
Hmm.
and how we were helping drivers. But I think it was the notion was that there are tools that are starting to be developed as the on-demand world matures and grows.
Definitely.
Tools like us that are finally helping out. Um, and so I think it's great for drivers who sometimes get down about rates getting lowered. I think, it's like we like to put the positive spin on it and say, look, there's hope if you work smarter,
Yeah.
which is your which is your view as well, you can
Yeah.
do pretty well. And so that piece was great. And it also, we timed it to announce a couple things. One was the seed round that we raised, which we had to announce at some point. But the bigger thing was our mobile app.
Cool.
And we officially launched this, even though the New York Times mentioned it on Sunday, we officially launched on Monday. So it's really only been 3 or 4 days into the mobile launch for iPhone.
Gotcha. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so I mean, I think you have a couple screenshots that you can share, but why don't you talk a little bit about the iPhone app? And I mean, I know that, for example, just in the past week, I've seen I know that a lot of my site's traffic is mobile, and I know that I think there was a big article about Verizon and AOL merger, and the CEO said something all about, it was very focused on mobile this, mobile that. So I think it's definitely cool, especially when you have all these drivers who are out there on their smartphones, and a lot of them are probably wanting to look at an app and kind of wanting to track their income on an app. And from what I've seen so far, I'm a little bummed because I'm on Android, so I don't get to preview it. I'll have to download it on my
Right.
wife's phone, like we
Yeah, we
talked
know we're
about.
missing, drivers right now, but we say stay tuned and
Yeah.
working on it.
Well,
Yeah,
you guys are still a small company, just you and Jay Z, right? So
that's
you kind of gotta, you can't do it all at once. Gotta maybe start with one and then slowly move. But yeah, so if you want, I know you have a couple slides you can share and kind of tell us a little about the app and maybe what benefit it's going to have for drivers and kind of show us, maybe a cool feature or two. Because I think you guys
yeah.
definitely, I mean, it looks great, I think, and you guys obviously put some hard work into it.
Yeah, so the main reason for developing the app was to help drivers track their mileage and
Hmm.
also help them more in real time. So we view it as a companion app to the current web dashboard.
Hmm.
And for those of you who haven't been on the Sherpashare web dashboard recently, we've updated it. There'll be more updates coming up. But as you know, currently we only track, or the companies only provide mileage when you have passengers.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what the mileage we've been able to track so far. But you might be missing out on 50%, 60%, or more of your mileage. And that was a big
Definitely.
piece. Of drivers came to us and said, we want to track all our time and mileage so we know exactly how we're doing and what our earnings per hour is. And the only way we can do that is if we provide a mobile app that allows you to categorize your mileage and also log time that you've worked.
Cool.
So that was the number one reason we built the mobile app. And let me pull up the screenshots here.
Perfect. All right. I'm seeing it.
Great. So yes, so I mentioned for the iPhone users, we wanted to automatically track all your mileage. The way it works
Hmm.
is any existing Sherpashare user use their same credentials to log into the app in the App Store under Sherpashare.
Cool.
And you accept the location permissions. We have an option of you can also have hardware integration if you're an automatic user,
Hmm.
and that's important. You get much more detail
Yeah.
as an automatic user. But for now, if you don't have that
And
device,
so, for those who don't know, Automatic is a physical device, right, that plugs into your OBD2 port. Is that right?
that's right. Yeah. So that plugs right into your car. Whereas by default, our app tracks through some advanced GPS technology.
Got it.
Um, so it's basically set it and forget it. You log in, you accept the permissions. The next time you drive,
Hmm.
uh, your mileage will automatically be logged here.
Very cool. Very cool.
And then you can easily swipe left for pleasure or personal and swipe right if it's rideshare or business related.
Nice.
And you can watch your tax deduction increase every time you swipe. An important note here is as soon as you swipe for business, it's synced to the Sherpashare web dashboard. So you can go on
Very
and
cool.
actually see it of the map of your total mileage and deduction. So that's, yeah, people are loving the maps. Everyone wants to see a map
Yeah.
of, like, where did I go today? How did I do? And so you can see that
Yeah,
now.
no, I was just thinking to myself, it's kind of cool to see like the trips and the maps and kind of see what you did. So I think there'll be a lot more too that you guys will be able to develop on that front too in regards to like trip tracking and all of that good stuff. Very interesting.
Right. And then there's two new features that we put in the app, and to be honest, we've just in 3 days we've been amazed at. It was more our hunch is people wanted to chat in real time and talk to each other, and so we put in chat and a peak feature, and chat. We've had hundreds of people already posting status updates, if you will, or asking questions. And the big advantage here is, we see it complementary to a lot of Facebook or online forums. I know you have a vibrant forum.
Right.
We see this more when you're on the road.
This is a little more real time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's been.
So can you reply? So for example, I see a coffee break. Anyone nearby is the top one that can be voted up or down. And can you reply to that, or how does that work?
You can reply to that,
Okay,
and then the
cool.
poster will get a notification someone's replied.
Very cool.
So you can do back and forth there. And currently, it covers a good portion of the U.S. But as we build up the network in different cities, we can localize it, so you can only see information near you.
Gotcha. Very cool. And then I see something that looks a little bit familiar. I see a little map peeking out behind that kind of reminds me of something that I used to see on the Lyft app, the Lyft driver app, quite a bit. What do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so this is a new feature as well, obviously. The peak feature, where we actually, when you're viewing the app, or you've been in the app recently, you can see. Do you hear that noise?
Yeah, I think it might be like a little interference or something. I think, but it's all right. Keep going.
Okay. So the peak feature, so you can see drivers who are nearby in the app, and it's optional right now, so you can disable it any time. But the idea there was you can see how many drivers are near you on the road right now.
Interesting.
And kind of when you're inactive, you're not visible. So it's only when you're viewing the peak or have recently viewed the peak. And to be honest, most drivers are like that's the feature that excites them the most.
Yeah.
I think what we tell them is great. Help us get more drivers on the map.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it looks good, and you might have even just motivated me to download it on my wife's app and check it out, on my wife's phone and check it out.
Yeah, would be great. So I'll and so that's we will work on Android soon. So stay tuned. But the biggest thing, as I mentioned, is the mileage tracking.
Very cool. Very cool.
So you can swipe swipe for business, and then within a few minutes, it's on your dashboard, and you can see your total trips. That's a big announcement, and just in a few days, we've had thousands checking it out.
Wow, awesome, cool. Well, that looks great. Congrats on the new app, and I think I'm excited for you guys. And definitely, I guess the biggest thing is that any of these tools that are making it, they're all headed in the direction of making things easier for drivers, which I think is a great thing. And I even released an article today about tracking mileage as part of my Business of Rideshare series that I might have to update with your guys'. I think I only touched on it, but I might have to add a little. And I think that all these services are headed in the right direction of helping drivers. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's great. And this is, for the app, it's version 1.0. So cool. I know you have a very vocal and, community of a lot of drivers who are influencers. And so encourage them to send us feedback, because we're constantly adding features or improving things based on the feedback we hear.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll leave a link in the notes or the comments to sign up for the app, and then also a link to the App Store so that people can get the app and start giving you guys feedback. So, Ryder, is there before we leave, anything else? How can people reach you, or how can they find you guys and learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so feel free to get in touch with John Ming or myself. My email is Ryder@Sherpashare.
Cool.
Jay-Z's is Jay-Z at Sherpashare. And
Awesome.
yeah, you can reach out anytime. We love talking to drivers, and more deliverers are using
Yeah.
Sherpashare.
All right, now I think we must be. It seems like back in the day when you're on a phone and you'd be like getting your neighbor's call. I
Yeah,
think that might be happening right now on our
I think
Skype
so.
conversation.
Thanks, Skype.
But luckily it didn't interrupt too much. So if you guys are wondering who this weird female voice, like talking to her husband or maybe boyfriend or whatever, it's not me or Ryder. But all right, Ryder, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing more from Sherpashare and kind of continue helping out drivers together. Sound good?
Thank you, and thanks for all the great work on your end too. It's been great.
Awesome. All right, cheers, Ryder.
Bye.
Bye.